HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Dinosaur Tamer and Other Stories for Children with Diabetes by Marcia Mazer, Peter Banks, and Andrew Keegan. Read by P.J. Ochlan and Tanya Eby.
Preface to Families. The American Diabetes Association Kids Corner Stories, a new genre of health education literature, began in 1988. These enjoyable and imaginative fictional stories are about children with diabetes, in family life, at school, and at play. They are designed to help children learn about and sustain their interest in diabetes. These stories are interwoven with ideas about positive ways to cope with concerns and adjustment issues common to children everywhere. The stories collected here first appeared in Diabetes Forecast magazine. As a former Kids Corner advisor, I helped to generate ideas for the stories by drawing on my social work experience in the diabetes program at Children's National Medical Center, Washington, D.C. The children and families often saw their own experiences reflected in the stories. Children with diabetes face situations, both real and imagined, that can cause them emotional distress. Identifying with story characters allows them to see their own situations and new possibilities more clearly. They can imagine being braver and more confident, like the boy in the red baseball cap. They might master their feelings about the unfairness of having diabetes, as did the child in Why Me? Families can learn about the importance of working together, as is highlighted in Please Listen, Dad. What children absorb when they listen to these stories may change from one time to another. It is recommended that you listen to the stories too, so that you are familiar with them and can talk comfortably about ideas contained in them with your children. This collection of stories is at once delightful and educational. It also emphasizes the strengths and potential for growth within each child and family. Sandra F. Epstein, LCSW-C.
Not so different after all. The Dinosaur Tamer by Peter Banks. Every time he went to Dr. Kavanaugh's office, Danny Littleton turned into a dinosaur. He wasn't just any dinosaur. Who, after all, would want to be a brontosaurus, fat and slow, or a stegosaurus, with all those rattling plates on its back? No, Danny always turned into one special dinosaur. A Tyrannosaurus, strong and fearless, the king of the dinosaurs. Of course, his mother just thought he was daydreaming again. Grown-ups always said that he daydreamed too much. Once, his teacher, Mrs. Parker, had called his mother to say that Danny was distractible in class. He'd had to look up that word, distractible. It meant he wasn't paying attention. Of course, he couldn't make anyone understand. How could a grown-up understand about a Tyrannosaurus? A Tyrannosaurus couldn't just stop in his tracks and answer a question like what was the capital of Illinois, or how much was 9 times 7. A Tyrannosaurus also didn't have time to be afraid of anything. If he had diabetes, a Tyrannosaurus would never be afraid to tell Mary Ellen Sullivan to stop saying those things about him. Mary Ellen was a girl Danny had liked, until the day he overheard her talking about him at recess.
"Danny's got diabetes,"
she said to a bunch of other kids.
"That means he's sick, and he's got to take shots and eat special food and stuff."
It made Danny mad that all the kids thought he was sick. He wasn't sick. He just had diabetes, that was all. He played baseball and basketball just like the other kids. He wanted to go right up to Mary Ellen and tell her to stop telling kids he was sick. But every time he thought about doing that, he got scared and didn't do it. And so, last Monday, when Danny actually had come down with the flu and felt bad, he hadn't told his mom or dad. He knew that he was supposed to. Dr. Kavanaugh said all the time that if he felt sick, it was important to tell. But Danny couldn't do it. He wasn't going to let everybody in his class think Mary Ellen was right. But that's what they thought anyway now, because after he had gotten to school he had felt terrible. Mrs. Parker had noticed how he looked and sent him to the school nurse. when the nurse pulled the thermometer from his mouth and said,
102. Guess you get to go home.
Danny started crying and couldn't stop. Partly it was because he felt so sick. But even more, it was because now everyone would know he wasn't strong and fearless, but just Danny Littleton, who was sick with diabetes just the way Mary Ellen said. Thinking about it now, sitting beside his mom in the waiting room, he turned into a Tyrannosaurus again. He stamped around the room, hooking his big clawed feet into Dr. Kavanaugh's gray carpet. He felt as if he were 100 feet high. The people in the waiting room looked as small as the little goldfish in Dr. Kavanaugh's aquarium. He was just about to throw his head back and roar when he heard someone calling,
Danny?
Danny! His mother was tugging at his sleeve.
Danny, stop daydreaming. The doctor is ready to see you.
Sure enough, a nurse was holding a door open for him. His mother started to get up, but Danny asked her to stay.
You come to the doctor's office after he looks at me,
he said. There was no way you could be strong and fearless when your mom was always following you like you were a baby. The nurse took Danny to a little examining room.
Dr. Kavanaugh isn't here today, so you'll see Dr. Wilson. He works with Dr. Kavanaugh now. I think you'll like him a lot. He'll be in a minute.
She shut the door behind her. Danny slumped down in the plastic chair. It didn't matter what doctor he saw. They would all say the same thing. He should always tell his mom and dad when he felt sick, because his blood sugar could go too high. Danny stood up and started to walk back and forth in the little room, a Tyrannosaurus again. He could see himself marching through the forest, and people scrambling to get out of his way. Just as he had started to do before, he put his head back and roared, but quietly, so no one did hear. But someone did hear, because just at that moment, the door opened. "Hi, I'm Dr. Wilson," a man's voice said. "That was quite a roar." Danny turned around. He could feel his face getting hot and red. Then he noticed that the doctor was in a wheelchair. Dr. Wilson pushed into the room and closed the door behind him. "I roar myself sometimes. It makes me feel better," Dr. Wilson said. Danny laughed. He couldn't picture a doctor roaring. He also couldn't picture a doctor in a wheelchair.
"How come you're in a wheelchair?"
Danny asked. "I was in an accident when I was a teenager."
"Are you going to get better?"
Danny asked. "I'm not going to walk again, if that's what you mean," Dr. Wilson said.
"Oh,"
Danny said. He couldn't think of what else to say. "Danny," Dr. Wilson rolled his chair closer. "I'm going to check you to make sure that infection's gone, but I want to talk to you a minute first. Your mom said that you didn't tell her you had the flu. How come?" Danny looked at the floor. He wished he could turn into a Tyrannosaurus now, but this time he stayed just Danny Littleton. He looked up at Dr. Wilson.
"I was scared,"
he said. "What were you scared of?" He bit his lower lip.
"All the kids at school think I'm sick because I have diabetes. I wanted to show them I'm not."
Now Dr. Wilson would probably be mad at him and tell him he was dumb to forget to tell. But instead he said, "Danny, do you think I'm sick?" Danny looked down at Dr. Wilson's wheelchair.
"Well, yes. I mean, no, you're not, like, sick. Not like the flu or a cold or anything like that."
Dr. Wilson nodded. "That's right. I'm not sick. I just can't walk anymore," he said. "And you're not sick either. Your body just doesn't use food like it used to, so it needs some help from shots. But having diabetes doesn't mean you're sick. A cold, a flu, a stomach ache, that's sick. But diabetes is normal for you.
But that's what Mary Ellen said, Danny replied. She told everybody.
Then Mary Ellen doesn't know very much about diabetes, does she? Dr. Wilson said. Maybe you could tell her and the other kids what diabetes really means.
I can't, Danny said. She'd laugh. I'd be too afraid.
Danny slumped down more in his chair. He wasn't like a Tyrannosaurus at all. You know, after I had my accident, I was really afraid too, Dr. Wilson said. I had always wanted to be a doctor, but a lot of people told me I couldn't be one. You'd better just forget it, they said.
What did you do? Danny asked.
Well, I had a kind of secret way of making myself feel brave again, said Dr. Wilson. In high school, I was a diver. What made me feel really strong was diving. Being weightless, over the water just like a bird. Sometimes I thought I could really fly. After my accident, I couldn't dive anymore. But I could remember what diving felt like. And every time I felt scared, I just pictured myself in a dive. Dr. Wilson looked at Danny. I wonder if you have something like that you like to think about that makes you feel strong.
He smiled.
Maybe sometimes you feel like some animal that roared.
A Tyrannosaurus, Danny said.
Dr. Wilson nodded and smiled again. Well, Mr. Tyrannosaurus, he said, I'll bet you're not afraid of anything.
Nope, Danny smiled.
So, if you get a cold or a flu, you won't be afraid to tell your mom and dad.
Nope.
And Danny knew it was true. And I'll bet you won't be afraid to tell this Mary Ellen what's what next time she says something dumb about diabetes.
Danny paused. He didn't smile this time. Nope, he said finally. But he wasn't sure if he could do it, Tyrannosaurus or not. The next day, he told himself, was the day to tell Mary Ellen. But 3 o'clock came, and the bell rang, and he just went home. That happened the next day, and the day after, and the day after that. Danny decided he would just forget about it. He would let everybody think he was sick. One day, though, during story hour, when everyone was supposed to tell a story, he had an idea. His hand shot up to be called on before he even knew what he was doing. He couldn't face Mary Ellen alone, but maybe he could tell the class about him. As soon as he got to the front of the class, though, he started to see what a mistake he had made. His hands started to feel cold and sweaty. Everyone was staring at him. He would probably say something dumb, and Mary Ellen Sullivan would laugh out loud. Then he remembered what Dr. Wilson had said. What would a Tyrannosaurus do? As soon as he thought that, Danny felt himself looking down at everybody. He was Danny the Tyrannosaurus, staring down at Mrs. Parker's 5th grade class. Everybody seemed as little as ants. Then he started to talk, in a big, strong voice that he hardly knew as his own voice. I have diabetes, he began. But that doesn't mean I'm sick. I can do all kinds of things. Why Me? By Andrew Keegan. Why me? Robert must have asked himself that question 10,000 times since that day 3 months ago when Dr. Conforti told him and his mom and dad that he had diabetes. What did he do to deserve diabetes? He'd always gotten passing grades in school. He was a good teammate to all his friends on the baseball team. And he was always, well, almost always, nice to his brother Sam. And it wasn't exactly easy having a little brother. Getting diabetes just wasn't fair. It was almost as if someone had reached out, tapped him on the shoulder, and said, "You're it." Only this wasn't a game. It was real. And pretty awful. Since the day he was diagnosed with diabetes, Robert had wanted to find out why he was the one who ended up with it. So he went to his father. If anyone could understand diabetes, it was his dad. That night in the hospital, when Robert felt so sick and scared, it was his father's hand on his shoulder that kept Robert from feeling that diabetes was a towering monster ready to swallow him up. But later, when he asked his father why he got diabetes, his father really didn't have an answer. He just said something about it not being Robert's fault. The truth was, his father didn't know. It scared Robert a little to think that his dad, who knew baseball statistics back to the time when the Dodgers were in Brooklyn and a team called the Senators played in Washington, just couldn't answer his questions. But Dr. Conforti would be different. It was her job to know. He would ask her. His chance came during an office visit the next week. After the exam and blood test, Robert got up his courage. He fired off 3 questions in a row to Dr. Conforti. Boom, boom, boom. Why did I get diabetes? What did I do? Why me? Well, Robert, those are not easy questions, Dr. Conforti told him. Sometimes a person's body just stops making insulin. Insulin helps our bodies turn food into energy. Without insulin, our bodies don't work well. That's why you felt sick before we knew what was wrong, and why you felt better after we gave you an insulin injection. But, she admitted, even doctors and scientists don't completely understand why some people get diabetes and others don't. We're working on it, though. Someday we hope to find the answers. The important thing now is for you to take care of yourself. So even scientists don't have an answer, Robert thought to himself. He was grateful to Dr. Conforti for taking the time to explain how diabetes worked. But Robert was more interested in finding out why he got it. He still felt like he had been picked out of the crowd. He still felt alone. Robert wasn't ready to give up his search for an answer yet. But who else could he ask? He thought of all the adults he knew, and decided to try his parish priest and baseball coach, Father Ryan. Maybe he would know. After Sunday Mass, Robert went up to Father Ryan, who was greeting the churchgoers as they filed out through the main door. "Can I ask you a question, Father?" Robert asked. "Give me a few moments here, Bobby, and then we'll talk," Father Ryan said. After the last group of parishioners had left the church, Father Ryan came over to Robert and asked him what was on his mind. "Nothing much, Father. I've just been wondering," Robert said. "Wondering about what?" "Father, why'd I have to get diabetes?" Robert asked. "What did I do? Why me?" Father Ryan thought for a moment, rubbed his chin a bit, and then spoke. "A lot of things happen in this world, Bobby, and not all of them make sense," Father Ryan said. "Think of it this way. Life is like a beautiful tapestry woven out of all the colors of the rainbow. Reds, greens, blues, silver, gold. The threads are our thoughts, dreams, even the things that make us angry or sad. We can't see the overall pattern or figure out how it all fits together, but God can. And every thread you weave is important to him. Bad things sometimes happen, Father Ryan said. But when they do, we believe that God is always there for us, to help us, and to share His love.
For the next few days, Robert found himself thinking about what Father Ryan had said. It made a lot of sense. After all, there were hundreds of things he didn't understand, like the pull of magnets, how rainbows suddenly appear after it rains, or why balls drop down and not up when you let them go. A lot of things don't make perfect sense, but they happen anyway. And it all kind of fits together in a way. So instead of worrying about the whys, Robert concentrated on dealing with the everyday routine of finger pricks, injections, and meal plans. I guess you can get used to anything, he thought. Saturday. Robert couldn't wait for Saturday to arrive. He was scheduled to play baseball that afternoon, but first, his dad had promised to take the whole family on a trip to the old downtown section of the city. Robert loved the shops, the toy stores, and especially talking to Old Man Jacobs, the little old man who ran Jacobs Cleaners. In the past few years, Mr. Jacobs had opened a whole new world to Robert. The world of baseball in the 1920s and 1930s. He'd seen all the legends: Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Walter Johnson. Tacked to his walls were yellowed newspaper clippings and glossy photographs of all the greats. Mr. Jacobs' own Hall of Fame. Robert loved talking baseball with him. Once in town, Robert's family went off in different directions. His mother went with Sam to buy him a new pair of sneakers, and Robert and his father ducked into and out of the shops along Main Street. Finally, they reached the sign that said, Jacobs Cleaners. They opened the door, making a little bell jingle. Mr. Jacobs greeted them both with a big hello. Bernie, I've got to run across the street to buy some greeting cards, Robert's father said. Robert would like to stay here with you for a few minutes. Is that okay? Sure, take your time, Mr. Jacobs answered. Robert's father nodded and closed the door behind him. So, tell me, Mr. Jacobs said, looking down at Robert. How are you doing? Okay, I guess, Robert answered. You guess? You don't know? Mr. Jacobs asked. Here, I've got just the thing for you, he said, reaching under the counter with one hand and lifting a candy bar over his head like a 4th of July sparkler. Have some chocolate. You'll feel better. No, I won't. That's the problem, Robert said. I've already had lunch, and I can't eat that candy bar because the doctor told me I have diabetes. I hate it. So you can't have a little piece of candy, Mr. Jacobs said. What's the big deal? What's so bad about diabetes? What's so bad? Robert couldn't believe that anyone would even ask him that question. Here's what's so bad, Robert said. Number 1, I have to prick my fingers every day. Then I have to get shots. And I can't even eat the things I want to most of the time, like that candy bar. It's not fair. No one else on my baseball team, nobody else I even know, has to do any of that. Why should I? Why me? Mr. Jacobs looked right at Robert. You know something? You're right. It's not fair. You got a rotten deal. Robert was a little surprised to hear him say this. It wasn't what he expected. Mr. Jacobs walked slowly over to the wall and untacked a photograph. Do you recognize this fellow? He asked. Robert studied the face. I think it's Lou Gehrig, he said. Robert knew his baseball history. And what do you know about him? I know he was a teammate of Babe Ruth.
And I know he held the record for playing the most games in a row, until Cal Ripken broke it.
Right you are, Robert. They called him the Iron Horse because he was so indestructible. Do you know how his streak ended?
No, Robert said.
It ended because he took himself out of a game. He was sick. In fact, he was dying. They held a special day for him in Yankee Stadium on July 4th, 1939. I'll never forget it. I was there. And do you know what Gehrig, who was so sick his legs were shaking, told the crowd? He said, "Today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth."
Why'd he say he was lucky? Robert asked. His streak was over, and he was sick. What's so lucky about that? Mr. Jacobs thought for a moment before answering, and when he did, he chose his words very carefully.
He was lucky, Robert, because he had love. That day, Gehrig didn't talk about his streak, or his home runs, or any of his accomplishments,
Mr. Jacobs said.
He thanked the fans for their kindness and encouragement. He thanked all the people he met during his years in the game, even the groundskeepers. He thanked his mother and his father, and his wife. He thanked everyone who loved him. In one afternoon, he tried to give back all the love that people had been giving to him over the years. That's why he considered himself the luckiest man on earth. He loved people, and people loved him.
Just as Mr. Jacobs finished his story, the little bell to his shop rang again, and Robert's dad pushed through.
"This boy been giving you any trouble, Bernie?" he said, laughing. "Maybe he needs to be pressed and folded." He pulled Robert's baseball cap over his eyes. Robert pushed his cap back to the top of his head and looked hard at his dad, who kept an arm on his shoulder. It didn't seem so important anymore that his father couldn't answer why Robert got diabetes. No one could. Just the way no one could answer why Lou Gehrig got sick. Maybe the why didn't matter that much. What did matter was that his father and mother were always there when diabetes seemed so scary. Just the way people in the stadium had cheered Gehrig on. "Gotta run. Take care, Bernie," Robert's dad said.
"You too,"
Mr. Jacobs replied. Then the old man bent down and offered his hand to Robert.
"I'm sorry to hear that you have diabetes, Robert," he said, shaking Robert's hand. "Come by any time, and we'll talk some more."
"It's a deal. See you next time," Robert said. Then he and his dad walked out the door of the dimly lit shop and into the blinding sunlight of the bright morning. Down the street, Robert could see his mother and Sam leaning against the family car. Both turned at the same moment and waved at him. His dad tapped him lightly on the top of his head.
"Time to get you home. We've got to get ready for the ball game, son,"
he said. At that moment, something like a wave rippled through Robert's body from his toes to his head. A feeling deep inside that he hadn't felt in quite a while. Maybe it was having his family all together, or Mr. Jacobs' story, or the baseball game. Maybe it was the sun shining in his face. Or maybe it was all of these things coming together all at once. He didn't know. He didn't care. He was happy.
The Diamond
Sample complete. Ready to continue?